Hello everybody and welcome back to the Not Applicable Formula 1 channel. I hope you're well, even though we haven't got a Grand Prix this weekend. We're looking forward to Monaco. It's just on the horizon. We can almost touch it, but not quite yet. So I hope you're ready for that next weekend. But this weekend, I thought I'd do something a little bit different and get involved with you guys in the community a little bit more. So as you probably know, my absolute favorite thing is to answer your comments in the description down below, to talk Formula One with lots and lots of different people, whether that be actually in the comments or on Twitter. My link is in the description down below if you want to follow me on there as well. But lots and lots of the time, I come across people who have various different ideas about different drivers, their ability, where they should be at in their careers, what they deserve to sort of move up to. And I thought I'd just lay out all of my opinions on all 20 drivers on the grid. I'm going to do it through a tier list because I thought it'd be the easiest way to show you my opinions. So I'm going to go from drivers that I think are absolutely amazing, the best of the best. Then I'm going to go for borderline champions. So those drivers that are just nearly, but I don't think maybe will make that step up to being like a legendary status within Formula One. Best of the rest, those drivers that it's difficult to say yet whether they're a borderline champion. It's difficult to say whether they're, going to be remembered as one of the best drivers of their generation. Quality midfield drivers, those drivers that I don't think are ever really going to fight for a title, but deservedly have their place in Formula One. Those drivers with something to prove to me, I guess, more than anyone else. Obviously, they're incredibly talented if they're in Formula One, but something to prove. And then finally, those drivers that are at risk, just those drivers that this season are at risk, and I could see at the end of this season, if they were gone from the Formula One grid, I wouldn't be too shocked by that. I think that's something that could happen at the end of the season. So, for instance, let's talk about the best of the best first. I think everybody in their right mind has Lewis Hamilton in there. Don't want to spend too long on him because he is just absolutely incredible. At this moment in time, still the best driver on the grid. Don't know how he's continuing to just keep this relentlessness of quality up. He is absolutely amazing. Whereas his teammate, Bottas, I'm going to start with a little bit contentious. I'm going to put him in quality midfield drivers. I just don't think he's ever shown... I know he was incredible at Williams. He deserved the drive at Mercedes. When Rosberg left, Bottas came in, and I don't think many people had that many questions about it. He looked good. He knew the team. It was a good step up for Bottas, but I don't think he's really ever taken that in his stride. I don't think you can ever say he's properly given Lewis Hamilton a run for his money. Whereas Rosberg, he was replacing, obviously Rosberg got that title from Hamilton, something that Hamilton probably looks back on is like, that maybe should be another title that I've got, and Rosberg managed to sneak it by him because Rosberg was imperatively good. He was so good. And like, Bottas just hasn't done it for me. So I'm going to put him in quality midfield drivers. Then we talk about the Red Bull guys. Max Verstappen goes in best of the best. I know that he hasn't won a world championship yet, but I think even so, I think when we look back at his career, him coming into Formula One, him being part of that Red Bull team, I think people are going to look back and think Max Verstappen is one of the best drivers that we have ever seen. And this season, he is showing that. Like, he is giving the Mercedes a run for its money. When the Red Bull, it looks fast enough. Is it going to be fast enough to challenge throughout the entire season? That's something that we need to sort of wait and see. But I think Max Verstappen's absolutely electric. He is so good. And then Sergio Perez, I think, is a best of the rest. I think he's a better driver than a quality midfield team. He deserves to be in one of those top teams. He deserves his place in that Red Bull seat. He has been amazing throughout Formula One. He's been so consistent. There's a reason he's kept his seat in Formula One for so long. And he is an incredible driver. I'm going to put him in there in best of the rest. Then we move on to the McLaren guys. Now, at the beginning of the season, I would have probably said that Lando Norris was a quality midfield driver. I think, towards the end of last season, he started to dip away, and Carlos Sainz managed to catch him fairly easily towards the end of last season. But actually, Lando Norris has shown me something this season that he really deserves his seat in Formula One. He has been so good at the start of this season. He was so good at the start of last season. I hope that he can continue it on this season, unlike he did last season. And that's why I'm going to slot him in best of the rest. I think he needs to show a little bit more for me to think this year he can be a borderline champion, or within the next 2 seasons he could be a world champion. I think he just needs to show that a little bit more, but he's definitely getting there. Talking about Daniel Ricciardo though, his teammate, I'm going to slot him in borderline champion. I think he's ready and raring to go. I think if he was in the car that was underneath him, that he knew, understood, I think he's so good a driver, and maybe a little bit underrated. I don't know, actually. He's probably rated where he should be. I think everyone on the grid knows he's an incredibly good driver. He was a little bit unfortunate that the Renault car never really came to fruition for him. He's taken a risk moving to Renault and being that guy. Now he's taken a risk moving to McLaren and trying to be that guy again. I think if he was given the opportunity to win a title, if he was given a car that could, race those Mercedes, those Red Bulls at the front of the grid, I think he'd probably be in there. And I think we're going to start to see that as this season progresses, because he's learning the new team, he's learning the new car, but already things just start to seem to click for him. Like last race out, he was very good, very quick, when Lando was not. And whether that was the track or whether that was him getting to grips with the car, that's what we need to wait and see. But I'm going to put him in borderline champion. Let's talk about the Ferrari drivers. I think Leclerc, we're looking at a best of the best. I think he's going to win a world championship, whether it's at Ferrari or not. I think he's going to win a world championship at some point. I think he's going to, again, be remembered as one of those drivers that is imperiously good. Like, he is just so good. And like, we've already seen it at the start of this season, a 4th place finish, a 6th place finish, a 4th place finish, a 6th place finish, over and over again. He's in that sort of talk. And I think people would be talking about him more if he'd managed to sneak a podium, a bit like Lando Norris has managed to get that podium, and therefore he's in people's minds, memories. But Charles Leclerc, absolutely amazing driver in my opinion. Then we look at Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz, I think, deserves to be in the best of the rest category. I don't think he's ever going to win a world championship. I don't think he's ever really going to push for a world championship. But I think he's better than a quality midfield team. I think he deserves that Ferrari seat. He deserved the McLaren seat as well. I think we're going to see him in those top teams for a very long time to come. But yeah, I don't think he's ever going to take that step forward and be a real title contender. Let's talk about the AlphaTauri guys. Yuki Tsunoda, so difficult to tell at the minute. So I'm going to put him in something to prove. He's still got to prove whether or not he is going to be that driver for Formula One. Whether he's going to ingrain himself in Formula One and become one of those drivers that is just on the grid every single season. Like, we see lots and lots of shuffling in Formula One, but people like Hamilton, Bottas, Ricciardo, Vettel, Verstappen, they're going to be in there for the foreseeable future. Yuki Tsunoda still needs to prove whether or not he is going to stay in Formula One for the foreseeable. You could possibly even put him at risk, but only because he's in the AlphaTauri team, the Red Bull team, and they just get rid of drivers willy-nilly. But I think he's there in something to prove. Pierre Gasly, look, he's a borderline champion for me. He is so incredibly good. I know he didn't show it at Red Bull, and I know people are going to absolutely hammer me for this and say that I'm just a Gasly fan, but maybe I am. But I genuinely think if he was given another shot at that Red Bull car, maybe when Verstappen, well, the problem is Verstappen's always going to be there and Red Bull are always going to gear the car to Verstappen. I think Pierre Gasly needs to move somewhere like a Mercedes. If he could get a Ferrari drive, I think he'd be so incredibly quick. He is so good. And again, the results haven't come for him this season, but a lot of the time that hasn't really been his fault. Like, he is qualified incredibly well, and then the car just hasn't been there for him on the day. So I'm going to put him in borderline champion. Maybe that's one where you can leave a comment down below. Am I talking absolute nonsense, or does he deserve to be there? And then moving on, let's say Aston Martin are sort of the next team down at the moment. Or you could argue Alpine are also, in that mix. Let's go for Alpine, because Fernando Alonso, although he's had an absolutely incredible career, I think at this moment in time, he is a quality midfield driver. I don't think, he's ever going to get back up to that incredible seasons we saw from him. We've got to remember now, his world championships were 12, 13, 14 years ago. He is incredibly quick, an incredible driver. But at this moment in time, he is a quality midfield driver. You could say the same for someone like Kimi Räikkönen. I think sits in that same seat. An amazing driver. The reason that he is the most experienced driver on the grid is because he is absolutely insanely good. But at this moment in time, I don't think he's ever going to get back up to that level. I don't think, he even wants to get back up to that level. I think he's fairly happy just sitting where he is on the grid. And I think those two, again, are going to be remembered as greats. But at this moment in time, they're not those drivers that they were maybe 10 years ago. But it shows that they're still on the grid 10 years later. Like, it's such a mind bender, those two. But I'm going to put them in quality midfield drivers for where they are right now. In terms of Aston Martin and Ocon is who I'm looking at now. I think something to prove, Stroll. I think he has a lot to prove in that Aston Martin car. I think we've seen that he can be so quick, but he's very young still. For me, maybe I just haven't seen enough of him, but I'm going to put him in something to prove at this moment in time. I think he is someone who needs to show that little bit of extra quality, and now he's got that opportunity. Now he is the number one in the team. I think we can see that. Perez has moved on. He's now taken that number one slot, and Vettel has come on as a sort of quality midfield driver. But I think Vettel is at risk this season. It would not surprise me if next year's grid did not have Sebastian Vettel in it. And that's why I'm going to put him at risk, because I think he doesn't quite have something to prove. I think we all know what Sebastian Vettel's capable of. Everyone on the grid knows Sebastian Vettel's game. He's a 4-time world champion, for God's sake. But he is so slow. And I think the Ferrari thing maybe has knocked his confidence. I think he's not the driver that we once knew. That guy that was doing donuts after every race and winning continuously and being immortal almost, it felt, in that Red Bull. Yeah, I'm going to put him at risk. And Ocon is a tricky one. I'm going to put him in best of the rest. I think he's on par with Lando Norris. For me, he's still got a little bit more to show as to if he can take that step up to a world championship team. I know he's been really, really good in the Alpine so far, and last time out, he was incredibly good too, but he's got a little bit more to show for me. And that might just be, again, because I haven't seen enough of him yet to really put him in contention with those borderline champions. That little step above. I think at the moment, we can put both Haas drivers in something to prove. I think it's very, very tricky to say, similar to Tsunoda, we're 4 races in. Mick Schumacher's showing quite a lot of quality. You know what? Just because I don't want to have arguments with people, let's put Mazepin in at risk, because let's be honest, he shouldn't make it into next year's grid. Like, the form that he is showing at the minute, he shouldn't be in next year's grid lineup, but I think he probably will be for outside factors. In the same way you could say with Latifi, but actually I think Latifi, yeah, again, is one of those ones that could sit in any of these bottom 3, right? Because I think he's been at Williams long enough to show that he could maybe move to a midfield team and be all right. Not good by any stretch of the imagination. Maybe I'm going to slot him in something to prove, but in a slightly different way to the other 3 that are in there. Latifi needs to show that he can actually be a good driver outside of just paying to be on the grid. Giovinazzi, I think, is at risk. Again, if it came around to next year and he wasn't on the grid, I don't think I'd be too surprised. Going to slot him in at risk there. Not sure if he's going to take that next step up. I think he's probably the one to be replaced. I think if Alfa Romeo are still around next year, I think they'll maybe try and keep hold of Kimi and maybe not keep hold of Gio. If they can get away with getting another Ferrari driver in there, maybe an Ilott. I know a lot of people talk about going in there. Yeah, I can see Gio being one of those drivers that was just close to being into Formula One, getting himself into that midfield pack, but not quite ever making it. And then I've left myself with George Russell at the end. And George Russell is a tricky little one. I think he's proved when he was in that Mercedes car that he was good enough. So I'm going to slot him in with the likes of Pierre Gasly and Daniel Ricciardo. I think he's of that level already. But then I've been debating with people recently as to whether George Russell or Ocon should get that Mercedes seat. And I think it's been a very, very good little conversation that I've been having. I'd actually like to know your opinion. If George Russell and Ocon were both offered a Mercedes seat, or maybe if they were both in the Mercedes car next year, let's say Hamilton and Bottas both leave, which of the two of them would you see doing better? I think it would be a very, very close race. But I'm going to put George Russell just in front for me. I think he's just better than Ocon. I think he is better than Lando as long as he can get the car that is going to show that he is a little bit better than Lando. I think he's better than Sainz and Perez in terms of his ability to move forward, and especially into next year and this season, I think he's going to show a little bit more than them. But yeah, that's my 20 drivers. I'm sure there's something in there that I've said that has been absolutely terribly wrong. Let me know in the comments below, or maybe you could even find, I'll pop a link to this in the description and you can do your 20 drivers and then send me a picture of it on Twitter and I'll be more than happy to have a little talk through yours as well. Thank you so much for watching. As I should have said at the start, hitting 100 subscribers today as I'm recording this, absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed, make sure that you do subscribe because there's big things happening on this channel. I absolutely promise you that. As I said, leave a like, leave a comment. That's my favorite thing to do, is get involved in the comments down below. Actually, whilst I'm here, one of my commenters, one of my main fans, his birthday today, so I'll shout him out at the end of this video. Happy birthday. I hope you're having a very, very good one. I will leave it there though. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.